Any other comments for or against this?
So if you're really looking at the cost of the charger and everything, you're looking at $5,000 over 5 years, not 8 years.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right, then, and then on top of it, look, we're also talking about having it available for folks, so, okay.
Public service.
Public service. Then I will make a motion to authorize the manager to purchase the charge point level 2 charger for $12,433 and engage R&R Electric to upgrade the electric and run the line for EV charger as outlined in their proposal for the amount of $4,235. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, so in your packet, I have placed concept plans from the architect Kim Brett. We asked them to do some concepts for renovations to this building and then also possibilities for additions for meeting rooms. So they've come up with some concepts. I marked up their public works proposal. Steve and I talked about it. We marked it up and sent that back to them for revisions. So at this point, you know, it's conceptual. We don't anticipate moving forward with them to do any actual design. And we don't plan on moving forward with these meeting room concepts anytime soon because we've already decided to move forward with converting the schoolhouse. So at this point, it's just kind of to have options for the future if the schoolhouse doesn't work out and the township decides they want the meeting room attached to the admin building. We now have a couple concepts. So if you want to just take a look at them and if you have any additional comments you want me to share with the architect. The other question I have for you is whether or not you want me to have this architect come and present the plans. At this point, we're sort of ready to move on, but if you guys want me to have them come out and give you a presentation, I'm happy to get that scheduled.
Did they say out of the, because I think there were 3 different plans that were presented?
I'm sorry?
With the 3, I think there were 3 different plans that were presented.
So they had originally, yeah, so they basically did 3 different concepts. One was a schoolhouse, one was
Pushing
a
out
meeting
front
room
here.
pushed out that way, and then the third option is using the upper level of the back building as a meeting room that people would enter and go up that way. So those are the concepts we had to do. We had them reconfigure the admin space so that it could better accommodate staff and be safer in terms of, you know, in an emergency getting out. So I think, you know, they essentially kind of met that we asked them for. Downstairs, a little bit of reconfiguring of the public workspace in this building, and then also we asked them to put together a plan to add a locker room and showers for the public works guys. And then out back, our long-term plan is to relocate the mechanic bay, which is attached to this building, into an addition off the pole barn, or the pole building out back here, so that that's kind of an independent space and we don't get the fumes from big projects up here in admin. So again, it's just concepts that they put together for us, and then we would move forward with someone to, you know, refine them for construction plans.
Okay.
I like this.
Yeah.
I like that question.
I think you have a question.
In that
packet or so, when you had the Limerick generating drill. That's pretty pitiful.
Well, that, yeah, it'll get upgraded in the whole
To
building.
have all the stuff that's required, done, and we're always trying to find the proper stuff. So that is in there.
Well, that's the idea, is to upgrade
Yeah,
that
so
whole-
right, so the idea, right now, the room that's emergency management also is the locker room, also is storage. So the idea is build a dedicated locker room for the public works guys, and then that room gets upgraded and is dedicated to emergency services.
So I guess the question is, do we want to do a presentation?
I want to go over all them first.
I'd like
Yeah.
to see it come in here first.
So why don't you go ahead and take a look at what they've given us, and if you have any comments or changes you want to see, I can send those over to them, because I already sent them the changes we wanted to see for Public Works. And then once they make those changes, if you guys decide you want them to come in, we can have them come in, okay?
Okay. Comcast franchise renewal discussion, draft franchise agreement.
All right, so in your packets, you have a copy of the draft franchise agreement provided by Comcast with my comments in the side, and then Comcast's responses to my comments in there. And then we sent that over to Ken, and then Ken kind of boiled down to some kind of key comments that he thought that we should have a conversation about tonight. Does that sound right, Ken?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to go over your comments, Ken?
Yeah, sure. By way of background, the FCC, authorizes these providers to work in the right of way. We have to enter into an agreement with them. I guess 12 years ago, that was done, standard agreement, and now it's time for renewal. The provider generally will not extend more than 10 years. We have 10 years. The maximum amount they'll pay for franchise fee is 5%. They're paying 5%. They have to provide services to government buildings, schools, and things like that, and in charge, they're doing those things. And then you get into, hundreds and hundreds of items that are, they're not minutia, maybe they matter, maybe they don't. Customer service, whether, they provide us with a phone number to call, how fast they have to turn around, complain, investigate, and remediate, weaknesses or shortfalls. There's issues about audits, how often we can ask them to audit, to make sure that the township's getting properly paid. If money were not an object, my advice would have been hire this law firm in Pittsburgh that negotiates these deals for a lot of local municipalities. I've used them before. They're very expert in what they do, but they cost a lot. Most recently, I think they were hired and used by Lower Frederick Township for their renewal. We have a copy of that agreement, but what makes it difficult is they use different formatting. They'll take a paragraph that's similar to what they're willing to give to them, but they change it a little bit for us. And you're not really sure, how significant that change is. Like, does it really matter whether they have to provide service to a street that only has maybe 25 homes on it, and in our contract it says, 30 homes. Like, I don't even know if any of those situations exist in the township. So
Yeah.
I picked, where 5 homes would make a difference.
I'm just saying, we have streets with less than 30 homes on it, or less than 25.
Right, well, then they don't, they wouldn't, provide service there. But I've gone through it, I picked out things that I thought were, where we could push back. This would be very boring if I were to read it, section 1. The definition of gross revenue, for example, I think we have a very good definition. It mirrors almost exactly, or I think maybe it is exactly what Lower Frederick has in its contract. So, kudos to them and to us. We have a good definition of gross revenue. In the old days, if Comcast charged like a late fee. I think some of their advertising and marketing expenses were backed out. And, you know, anything that's backed out means we get a reduced franchise fee, but those things were all back in there. So, again, long and short, I would say we have a good definition of what constitutes gross revenue. That would yield the highest franchise fee to the township. I think the township gets, do I want to say $75,000 a year?
Approximately.
Okay, from, you know, as its franchise fee. The next thing I mentioned was a 12-year term. What we have, we're gonna get 10 now, but I think that's the standard. I wouldn't push back there. They're not gonna go beyond 10 years. From what, you know, my experience, relatively limited experience. Specifications, customer standards, I do suggest, you know, that Tracy push back here, subparagraphs 3 and 4, and adopt the language that's in the Lower Frederick Township agreement. I don't think we'll get away with saying, because someone might say, well, why don't we just take the whole agreement from Lower Frederick and use that? I don't know that Comcast would do that. I initially said that, just give us the same agreement that was negotiated. I don't know if you had that conversation with them or not.
I'm not sure if I have
Yeah,
that. I mean, I
And I
gave
don't know that
her
they would.
the comments.
One of the things that's, you know, again, there's layers and layers of this stuff, but they're more inclined to, you know, give things to the township that are favorable to the township if they were in the original agreement 12 years ago, not so much if they weren't. And so, you know, it's quite a process. You know, I try not to spend, you know, many hours going through this to pick the minutia. You know, we are getting a 10-year deal, we're getting 5%. The gross revenue is based on what's good. Customer service is in there, and all the rest of it is, I think, less important. But there's still a few more pushbacks, but go ahead.
I was gonna ask a question, do you know, this firm that you were referring to, do you know what their rates are by hour? Are we talking about like?
It's a few $1,000 to have them do it. And, you know, I don't know, the lower would share what they pay or not.
I mean, they probably would. I guess, you know, at this point, they gave us their whole
Right.
ordinance, so it seemed a little bit pointless to go and hire an attorney to negotiate something that we had in our hands, right? I mean, if you guys want us to do that, we certainly can. And I mean, Ken really just has a few items that he's suggesting, you know, we could push back and see if we can get a little bit more. I mean, if you look at the, you know, the track changes, you know, like the revenue, you know, they had tried to really scale it back on us. I, you know, said to them, no, you need to give us the old, you know, scope of revenue, and they put it back, right? So they did give us, in my initial reaching out to them, they did give us several things back in the agreement that either had been in our original agreement or was in Lower Frederick. So like Ken said, he's got a few more things that we could try to get, and then see where that gets us.
Okay. So yeah, it's not talking, we're not talking about just having these folks, this other firm would, like, just review this 22-page document that they should already be, well, pretty well familiar with. We're talking about having them negotiate this thing.
Right.
Right.
What they would tell you is, oh, we can make you a much better contract, but you pay us $5,000 for it. It might even
Right.
be more.
And the thing is, I mean, we're already collecting the maximum percentage that we're allowed to, and they put back all of the sources of revenue that we were getting that percentage on, and they gave us a couple extras. So at this point, you know, the agreement is generally as good as it was for us, so we're not losing anything. There's not a whole lot to gain because we're at the maximum percentage.
Okay.
So, you know, it's really just like Ken said, some of these, you know, kind of minor things, you know, tree trimming, you
Right.
know,
Liquidating
contact
damages.
information.
And again, I think she told me the same thing I heard from the other lawyers in all the years, in all the townships. You know, I don't know that Comcast has ever paid liquidated damages. No, but this law firm, we could also, you know, push hard for that, you know, $250 a day for any time service is out and they don't, you know, meet their customer, you know, service standards, or they underpay us. There's actually language, you know, if they mistakenly, you know, sort of underpay us. We should be doing those intermittent audits or, another thing to do is take a look at that statement when it comes in monthly or quarterly or yearly, and to see where our revenue's coming from, you know, which services. You know, we get paid for all cable services, pay-per-view stuff, you know, advertising, used to be the QVC channel, you know, all those things, you know, go into the gross revenue portion. But again, they're all included. Again, just to kind of wrap up, I gave Trace a few more pushback points. You know, I think they'll yield on some of them they may not. But I think if you give it one last, you know, college effort, we'll have a very decent agreement at very little cost, you know, to the township. And it'll be good for 10 years. We'll see what the technology is 10 years from now for doing this again.
So if the board's okay, I'll go ahead and take Ken's items and send them back to Comcast and ask if they can incorporate those into the contract. And then whatever they come back with, if you want, I can ask them to have a representative here at your next meeting, and then you can, you know, if you'd like, you can talk to them directly about any concerns. Or if you feel good about what we get, then we can just move forward.
Do we get customer complaints? You know,
I just have a question. Why are they so different? Like, why would it be the same as Lower Frederick? Why they aren't all the same for all the towns?
Yeah, you have to believe there's something in it for them, but I can't figure it out because, you know, a certain relatively small percentage of townships hire this firm from Pittsburgh to do it. I mean, they're statewide, well-known, they're the go-to company for that. I don't know, maybe it's a divide and conquer thing, but they spend a lot of time, you know, with each municipality. There's a lot of municipalities, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, all right? Just in this county alone, I think there's 46 or 60 some municipalities just in Montgomery County. They do this everywhere. You know, it's a lot of time on their end. So I don't have a good answer for you. You would think they would have developed a pretty much this is what everybody gets.
Right.
But at least this, so far, that's not how it works.
Okay. All right. Questions, comments?
I have a question on that 4-1.
Yep.
On your notes there, what's the reason for the change for 200 from 275? You know, there's some people that have very long driveways.
Farms and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think what they're saying is, I want to keep it at 200, which is if your, you know, residence is not more than 200 feet away, they'll provide service. They want to bump that to 275 feet. So I'm saying, let's keep it at 200, it's better for the residents.
Okay.
Their reason for wanting 275 is it would be fewer homes. I think it would provide the service, but then there's cost. You know, anything over 200 feet, you have to pay. They want to make that 275. Maybe vice versa.
I think it's vice versa.
It's the other way around.
It's the other way around.
It was free, you know, 275, and it was short.
To 200.
So, and Tom, if you.
So, well, just one question, so it's free for the resident up to 200?
Yes.
Anything over 200, the resident has to pick up?
Yeah, there's a
In
cost,
comparison
like
to
an
275.
installation fee or something like that.
Well, why would we want to change that back to 200?
Well, I think I have it. Let me look at
Which
4.1.
item is it?
Maybe
4.1,
that's
line
sort
number
of your
3.
backwards.
You know, I think that Comcast should pay for that, not the resident.
Yeah, the 200, so it read before it read, for purposes of this section, a home shall only be counted as a dwelling unit if such home is within 275 feet. And is it, they're looking to change it to 200 feet.
Correct.
So, yeah, in my letter to you, you just reverse that. It's, we want to keep it at 275.
Right. But Tom, if you go to page 7 of the contract, you'll see in the side comment boxes where so TT is me,
Yeah.
SJ is Comcast, so, you know, there I am asking them to, you know, keep it,
Under 4-1?
right. Although there it says current language appears to be 200 feet.
Yeah, and it says keep keep it 200 and Ken with a question mark.
Right.
I think it would be better for the residents if
Yeah,
it's
if it was
275, not
275.
200.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see if we can get it back to 275 or to 275. But if it's currently at 200, that might be a lot to ask for, but we'll ask.
I thought that was a strikeout from 275 to 200. But
Yeah, we
this has
don't,
been touched.
Yeah.
long story short, we don't wanna see them reduce the distance.
Correct, but I think what it is, I think maybe Lower Frederick has 275, and so we were trying to get 275. She struck it out and said, you get 200, which I think is what we currently have. But we'll look into that and we'll see if we can get it to 275. Okay?
Alright. Okay.
Not good.
Okay, so I'll send these comments to Comcast and we'll see if we can get anything more, okay?
Okay. Audio tape policy.
All right, so last month, the board, or maybe the month before, the board decided to post the Board of Supervisors audio to the website. But we didn't really address when we do audio of Planning Commission and Parks and Rec. So there's a draft ordinance that basically kind of says that, you know, when we record, the plan is, the idea is to only record for minutes, and, you know, once the minutes are approved, we'll delete those audios, unless they don't approve the minutes at their next meeting, then the audio would become public record if someone wanted to hear it. So kind of how it was before, kind of formalized, if you're okay with that. We don't really have enough capacity on our website to be posting Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission and Parks Board. And we don't always need to record those other meetings if they're pretty simple agendas. It's just more when they're more complicated agendas that we need to tape those. So just wanting to see if the board has any guidance on audio for Planning Commission and Parks.
So I'm under the understanding you want to post the boards, the Parks and Recs and the.
We don't really have capacity to post those and the supervisors, like, it's a lot of audio.
Webmaster, none of the.
Well, we can
website
check on
site?
that, we don't have that up yet. We can check it if you guys want that, it seems a bit much, but if that's what you want, we can check into being able to post all the audios. But then I guess the question is, do you want me to record all the meetings, because we don't always need to. I mean, if it's just a simple meeting and we don't have a lot of complicated topics, typically we can just do minutes from our notes. So figured we should kind of get some guidance, since we have guidance on your meetings now, we can get some guidance on the other ones.
Then we have the problem if you keep canceling meetings, minutes aren't getting approved and not being put up there.
Correct, so the way the resolution's written that Ken had put together before, in those situations, if the minutes are not approved at the next meeting of the Planning Commission or the Parks Board, then that audio becomes public record and somebody could ask for a copy of it.
Right, and then would you have to store it on the website, or you just store it here and mark on the website that it's available, or how does